Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Birsler. I am the VP of Product Communications and Support at CosmoLex, and I'm very excited to be here with you today.
Erica, thanks for showing me all this stuff. I
Mhm.
always like digging under the hood of CosmoLex, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. But you guys have something kind of new up your sleeve that I guess if somebody's paying attention to CosmoLex and what's been going on in that area is they could potentially see coming. But
Mhm.
I'm excited about it. What do we have here today?
Yeah, really exciting stuff. So we will be talking about CosmoLex CRM today, and I think what's kind of happened is the market has done a little bit of a shift.
Hmm.
CRM was not necessarily something that law firms were thinking too much about.
Right.
And I think that while every business uses a CRM to manage their client database, I think the legal industry is a little bit different because they have this legal practice management piece.
Right.
They have a platform dedicated to managing their files. But what happens before you gain that business? And that's what we'll be showing.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point that, my father and I ran our creditors' rights practice off of CRM for years. I mean, we
Hmm.
were doing
Hmm.
calculations and everything. And we, as lawyers now, have the benefit of these law practice management systems, and they
Yep.
kind of shortcut it. And they
Yep.
they leave out a lot of times, leave out this potential new client to client aspect, or just the broader communication with client aspect. And so I like to see this fusion of law practice management system with the CRM, because I think it is,
Yeah.
at least now, like you're saying, becoming an integral part of that practice.
Yeah, and I think small businesses, especially lawyers, need to really understand the importance of proper marketing.
Hmm.
Not just doing things to do it, but what are the results of that marketing? What am I actually getting in? And some practice areas are a little bit different. Some are highly referral, some are
Hmm.
highly return business, but there are so many that rely on, contact forms from their website or other methods of getting those leads, and you want to work the best clients. So
Right.
I think now there's more of a focus on actually putting effort into those activities, and now we're providing the tools to do that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Well, let's see what those tools look like.
sure, absolutely. Okay, so I am logged into Cosmlex right now, and we have this icon up here, which is our modules icon.
Okay.
And if you click on that, you will see Cosmlex CRM.
Okay, so this is, and I think this is a little bit different than last time I was in here, where we didn't have, kind of that clicking pieces of CosmoLex together.
This is new, this
Yeah.
modules icon. And yeah, and we've had, as you've seen, Cosmolex Pay was something we already have, but
Hmm.
we're starting to develop a little bit of a collection here of
Hmm.
what people can choose to add on to their subscription. You may have some users that need CRM and some users that don't. So
Right.
they'll be able to determine that for their firm's needs and access it directly from the system.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And kind of as we go through, what I'll talk about is not just the CRM piece of the puzzle, but also how that feeds into the matter management. What
Hmm.
information from the marketing side actually is useful once you start working on that file and how that comes into the separate pieces of the software.
I think that's fantastic, because that's
All
the
right.
that's the key of bringing
Yeah.
these things together, is keeping your information from being siloed. If you're using Sage Act as your CRM and
Mm-hmm.
Cosmolex as your law practice management system, you're not getting all the benefits of having that information.
Yeah. And that's one thing where you could use separate tools for many different things, but then you're taking that additional responsibility and risk of doing double data entry,
Hmm.
extra time, extra error, more work, administrative work, especially that most
Hmm.
people don't want to take on. So
Right.
I'll touch upon those points as we go through as to what gets shared between the two areas, because there's a lot of stuff related to leads that you never end up working those leads.
Hmm.
They're junk and you don't even want them in your overall workflow. So,
Right. Right.
all right. So I am in the inbox right here. So we're going to go through a few of the areas in this CRM module. And these leads that come in here, these are all my leads that have come in. It could be from a variety of different sources.
Hmm.
I could either enter a lead manually, maybe I heard it from somebody or got a phone call, or I can integrate this with outside sources. So there's open APIs, also integration with Zapier, so they can take their website forms, third parties that they work with, and feed those leads directly into the application for them. So here I have one of my files that I'm going to go ahead and click on, and I'll get to show you all the little pieces of information that can be collected on that lead level. So the first thing that we're going to see when we log in here is the overview. Now, with this particular file, this is an auto accident, and so many things are driven by case type. With anything, whether you're managing a matter or a lead. So because I designated this as an auto accident, a lot of the fields, the forms, the templates are going to be already set up for me because that's something that I've put in my settings. So I can see here basic information, the client information, a few fields that I could fill out, as well as milestones. So these are the stages of this lead, and they can come along with maybe particular tasks that need to happen in each stage, assigned to different people. And we'll show you kind of how those tasks come into play. But it gives a nice overview of, okay, who is this person? What is their file? What is their current status? And all the different pieces of information over here as well. Kind of going down the left here. And of course, feel free to interrupt if you have any questions.
Certainly.
But we have we have the related contacts area. So this is any third parties. Like I have an insurance company here. You could also have maybe a witness on the case, mainly helpful for accessing this information, but also I can compose an email directly to that party from here if I need to. And this is one of the first pieces of information that will come over once this becomes an active matter. So relations is part of that, related parties.
So especially, if we're talking about a PI issue and we've gathered information about the other side potentially, then we don't have to gather that a second time once this
Correct.
our new client.
Yeah, this will build out your address book essentially that you use for your normal matter management. Those people may come up in the future, but also good for conflict checks. They'll be visible for those future conflict checks as well. Going to the form tab, this is intake. All right. So that's one of the main areas that law firms especially need a lot of help with because there's a lot of information that needs to be collected. And why not have the client provide it themselves, right? Everybody's moving in that direction of have them access it online, fill it out, and that way it's the most accurate it could possibly be.
And
so here's
I'm sorry to interrupt. I
no,
think
go ahead.
A lot of attorneys, when they think of CRM, they just think of intake.
Yes.
They just think of, oh, okay, well, that's how I can get my form onto my website. And yes, absolutely, you can. And that is a huge, huge part of the CRM. But as you can see on that left-hand side, there's a lot more to it. There's a life cycle of these once you get this information in the system.
I'm glad you brought that up because I really do feel that CRM is used as a buzzword and everybody has their own definition of what that actually means. Like we were saying, in most other businesses, a CRM is A to Z, the entire life cycle of a prospect that turns into a client or a customer is managed in one system. Legal is very different. So we have the more the practice management side, the lead management side, but that term lead management I like to use because there's CRM for law firms can be intake, but then how are you managing that file? How are you communicating that with that file all before you retain them? And yeah, absolutely. I do think a lot of people just assume intake and CRM are the same when that's only one part of it.
And there's even managing your marketing, gathering information from this to determine where you can spend your marketing dollars as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you could see here, this is a pretty robust form, fully customizable. This was built within the system. Again, can be linked to the case type. And to show you a little bit, because we always get asked about, well, how customizable is it? So just to pull open this form itself, there's a few things. So you can, actually alter the design. How many columns do I want? What are those sections called? What are the titles? Is it multiple tabs? All of that can be designated here, but you also can plug in any fields that you need to into this form, decide where they need to go. But my personal favorite part is this, again, builds into how does CosmoLex database that already has so much information help me with my lead management? So we have custom fields in the main matter management area that you can map to these intake fields. So I can say, in CosmoLex, I have a referral page that includes custom fields. I want to map that specific field to this intake field so that eventually I'll collect this information, I'll convert it to a matter that will populate those custom fields for me on the matter itself once I start working it.
I've got a lot of information to unpack in there. I'm really glad that you did that because that would be one of my first questions would be, how searchable and connectable is the custom field, but CosmoLex custom fields in that
Mm-hmm.
practice management system, that's all stuff that can be searched via reports. When you create a custom field, it's my understanding that information can be gotten to after the fact as well. So it's not just kind
Oh
of
yeah.
allocated somewhere else. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing is the idea here that just with that referral matter right there, that referral information, we can
Mm-hmm.
put that in there, automatically fill it out, and now we're tracking where our form was. Even if it's on the website, we can say, okay, well, this one's on the website. This one was one we
Mm-hmm.
sent out with an email. This was one that
Yep.
I sent people to when I went to this event. We can start to really track where our information comes from, and that's just by
Yep.
one little form field that is
Yeah.
already in your CosmoLex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Source is a huge marketing
Hmm.
measurement, just where is this coming from? And you can actually you can go as advanced to say, hey, I want certain, whether it's through those APIs, we're also going to be rolling out, phone capabilities as well. So
Okay.
somebody calls a specific number, I can attach the source to that too,
Hmm.
ad campaigns. So depending on how robust the firm wants to get, they could really take it to the next level if they choose to. But even just creating a simple form is pretty straightforward. And then
Hmm.
I have this field here. This is actually the one that I created, referral name, and it will tell you that it's mapped to the CosmoLex referral firm field. So it was
Right.
called referral firm in, let's say, CosmoLex matter management side, and let's say it was called referral name on this side for whatever reason.
Hmm.
We can map those two together. They don't have to be exactly the same, but we're pulling that information once we convert that over.
Great. Great. Okay. And it looks like this form creator is no code. It's rather drag and drop sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And you've got
Absolutely.
radio buttons, you've got drop downs, you've got text forms, you've got multiple text lines, you've got it looks like dates, phone
Mm-hmm.
numbers, all of those things to make sure that this data, and this is a thing that I think people don't really recognize a lot of times. The more um, that the data looks like itself every single time. When you get a phone number and it looks the
Mm-hmm.
same every single time, the
Yep.
easier it is to run a report on that. You want to make sure that you're
Mm-hmm.
sanitizing your data, and when you give multiple different ways of um, retrieving this information, then it's better on the back end when we're running reports.
Absolutely. And you're right. You could do all different types of, I love the drag and drop. Like it's
Hmm.
so easy to create this form. Like I said at the top, I designated this as 4 columns. I could change that to 2 columns or 1 column
Hmm.
if I wanted to divide it into sections. But even further, we do have conditional logic as well. So I
Yes.
can come up in here and I've actually set up a rule already that has, if the question, do you have an auto insurance, is yes, then a new field will come up and say, who is your carrier?
Right.
So you could say, hide certain fields, add certain fields, filter certain fields based on a particular rule. And it's actually pretty straightforward. And it's an if then statement
Okay.
to add into the system in order to set that up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So really great things from the intake side of things, because I know that's one of the first questions we get is, well, how does this information get in there? How do I collect what I need to collect? And they can create as many intake form templates as they need for the
Hmm.
type of work that they do.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so that's our form piece. We also have, actually, in terms of sending the form, so you can email it directly from here, which would be an actual templated email. They can send it directly from the system to the client. But also, we have a little sneak peek on some of the communications you could do in the system is we do have two-way texting.
Okay.
So you can, if they want to email it out using this link, they can absolutely do that. Or they can copy the link from here, or even from right here, we have the display form link.
Okay.
I can use this link and put it in maybe some outside communication, or I can take this link, copy it, go over to communications, and I'm going to go ahead and text this out to them. Go over to the
Nice.
text tab, and here's all of my two-way communication with the client.
Hmm.
And you could see I've already done an example before, but I can say, please put in, whatever information, please complete this form,
Hmm.
paste, send, done. And they
You
can
know,
complete it directly from their phone.
and this bridges that gap where text messaging is not secure. It's just it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't built to be secure. So you don't want to send, attorney-client privileged information or even confidential information via text message, but you can send a form for them to then give you the information via
Correct.
the CosmoLex CRM, and that kind of bridges that gap of where your clients want to communicate with you
Mm-hmm.
and where you can make it safe for them.
It's absolutely like we have so many people who ask, I want text messaging, I want text messaging. And
Hmm.
it was kind of a hesitation for a long period of time because, like you said, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that.
Right.
At the end of the day, the law firm needs to be responsible in how they're using the communication tools that they're using, what they're sharing through those tools, what type of tools and services they're using. I say the same thing about email. When you
Hmm.
send confidential documents through email, that
Absolutely.
too is something that's not secure unless you're adding your own encryption. So things
Absolutely.
like client portals and these insecure intake forms have really given them the tools to still have that convenience, but do it in a secure way.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So moving on, so we did the form, so they can send that out to their clients, and obviously that information will populate directly in the system.
Hmm.
They can also track key dates, especially if this is something like a litigation file. They have a lot of dates associated with this, maybe track just for reference, but they can also trigger certain tasks based on a particular date. So I can
Okay.
create a workflow that says, when the claim is filed on, let's say, October 1st, trigger this task to be assigned to this particular person.
Hmm.
We have a notes area. So this is just capturing notes, maybe from phone calls, from conversations. This too will carry on over to the matter if they do get converted.
Okay.
So be able to see that full note history going forward as well.
Great, because that's one of those things that when you have that information siloed out, yes, it may not show up in a report, but it is really, really handy to have. What was our first communication with this person? How did this person get here?
Mm-hmm.
What have we said to them?
Exactly. And also, it might be different people. I have somebody
Hmm.
completely different that's managing that lead side of the equation, and somebody completely different who's actually working the file. They don't know what was said prior. They don't know what was discussed. So it gives that full visibility.
Absolutely, and that is extremely common to have an intake
Mm-hmm.
department and then somebody working your case.
Yeah. Over to events. So you could see I have a particular event here. Not as common when you're first in that lead
Hmm.
section, but you might have a free consultation that you're doing with somebody. And this does integrate with Office 365 and Google Calendar if they do choose to use that. So they could see those events in both places if needed.
Okay. Okay.
Tasks. I am a huge proponent of tasks. I'm a very process oriented person. So I like my tasks.
Hmm.
Um, I think in this world of remote work, tasks are absolutely a necessity
Yes.
because I mean, they should be anyway, but now, especially when you're not on top of somebody all the time,
Hmm.
are they getting this work done? Having a task, being able to trigger it based on what milestone or stage we're in, or based on a key date, have it automatically assigned to that person, say this needs to be done, have dependencies there. Such a great tool to ensure that things are not missed.
Right. And so I'm gathering from this that we can put multiple tasks on a file for people to do, and it looks like we
Mhm.
can trigger a series of tasks.
Yeah, so you can actually have, when a certain event happens, maybe a status changes, we can have which tasks should be triggered in this automation. And it could be a whole bunch if need be.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And like you said, that is, to me, that's how you manage a remote world. When we were in a place where we could stand over people's desks or walk out, from our office into a common area and see who was there and who looked busy, that was a
Hmm.
really bad way of
Yes.
managing. It let
Yes.
us keep our bad habits. And now this is how we should have been managing anyway, of what
Yeah.
what tasks are you getting done? Are we completing our stuff? And frankly, for me, if my team is completing the tasks that I've asked them to complete and they're doing it in half a day, that's fine.
Hmm.
That's
Sure.
great. We're getting the tasks
Exactly.
done. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter if I'm standing over their shoulder. So yeah, I think task lists and just kind of managing it through there is a much better way to do things. And I assume that this moves over into the CosmoLex area, or at least
The
can trigger
task
into the.
points, they do not
Okay.
yet,
Okay.
um,
Um,
because those tasks are mainly completed at that point.
I was
But
about to
that
say that. Yeah.
history, We're thinking about it though.
Yep. No, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about
Yeah,
that. That basically, really what we're going to say is we get through these tasks and then we move into the CosmoLex law practice
correct.
management system, and then we
Yeah.
have other tasks in that management system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you typically wouldn't have anything pending at this
Hmm.
point if you've already, started to work on that file. But another good point about tasks that I want to mention is just there's so many what people say time wasting meetings on
Hmm.
status updates.
Yes.
Where are we at on this? Where are we at on that? If we could do a better job of just putting the notes in a task, marking a task completed, and creating those habits, I can actually look at the task list of people I've assigned to and actually have a good idea as to what's going on
Hmm.
without having to schedule a full meeting unless absolutely necessary.
That's
So it's a
yes.
huge productivity boost also from the coordination perspective, not having to schedule a meeting all the time.
That's a great point. Has this person gotten our initial email? Well, yes,
Mm-hmm.
because the initial email task is checked off.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it does take a little bit of reworking of habits, but once that's done, it's really a great thing.
Hmm.
We have documents here. So these can be documents that are linked to this file. Maybe there's some photos, some initial proof of the accident, let's say in this situation,
Hmm.
that I need to maintain, and also e-sign. So we do have built-in e-signature as well. So I have a particular template here that I can choose to add those fields, signature, date, drag and drop into those templates and use those templates going forward.
Hmm.
And then I can send it directly to the contact, and it will be by email by default email, but I could also choose to send by SMS if I want to. So
Okay.
this too
Okay.
could
Yeah.
be through text and it's secure e-signature, of course.
Okay. Great.
And for many law firms, they consider that like once a retainer agreement is signed, is kind of like we're ready to move on this. Once we get some
Uh-huh.
sort of signature, that's we're going to start working this as a matter. And I'll talk a little bit in a moment about how to then say, okay, let's start working this in the matter and how that happens.
Great. 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 Yeah.
And then the communications tab, we'll just kind of touch upon. I talked about it already, but you can set up email through SMTP. You can have emails come in here so you could
Hmm.
see what's going on, and also draft emails from here if they wanted to communicate with the client or prospect, in this case, the lead, directly from the system.
Okay.
And then text, which we hopped in before, they can go ahead and continue the communication from here as well. And this log will stay here, the full log of text communication.
Okay. Okay.
Now, let's say, you know what, I got that signed e-signature. I'm ready to start working on this file. We have an action menu here that says send to CosmoLex. I
Okay.
click on that. And basically what happens is I designate what this matter will be called, what the area of law will be.
Hmm.
It'll let me know if there's any duplicates, which is important. So it's basically pulling from CosmoLex, looking at the matter, area of law, contact name. Are there duplicates here? Should we let them know they're duplicates?
Hmm.
And then when I create a matter, to kind of break down all that gets created, the contact, the matter, related parties, notes, and documents all come on over.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So they'll be able to get a very large amount, as opposed to there's many systems that just create a matter and there's
Right.
nothing that comes with it. So there's a
Here's the
lot of that
thing.
information, especially if you have a signed retainer agreement. That's important
Hmm.
to have going forward. That will come over into the matter management half.
Okay. Well, kind of on top of that though is you're going to get that information over, and so that makes it more efficient because that's the information that
Mm-hmm.
is really really necessary and really kind of a good to have as well. But if you don't have something, we're still working in a single sign-on system,
Yes.
and so your teammates can go into that system and get whatever it is that may
True.
not have come across.
True. Yeah. And this is something that we're really looking to expand upon, however, do it in the smart manner.
Hmm.
Because, like I said, you don't want all the junk of marketing to come on over into your everyday database,
Right.
but there may be certain pieces of information that are helpful to have on hand, and we can always, expand upon that. There's a lot we could do in the future.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good point that I would like to kind of harp on is that one of the reasons we keep the CRM and the law practice management system separate is to kind of sanitize as we go across into, okay, this person is our client now. What information do we need for this and what information don't we need for this?
Mm-hmm. And we're starting with right now, it's like a two-way cross communication where like the custom fields from the matter management side can be linked to the CRM side for that
Mm-hmm.
intake.
Mm-hmm.
And then also when it gets converted to a matter, all that information goes along with it, including what values were in those custom fields as well.
Right. Love that. Love that.
Yep. Yeah, so just a couple other points that I'll touch upon briefly is we do have a full automations section,
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite areas. I mentioned how you can set up these automations to trigger certain activities. Actually, very straightforward. They can get very robust if they want them to, though.
Mm-hmm.
And for instance, I set up a very simple automation just to give you an idea of what this looks like. To every time there's a new lead, send them a text message. So let's say somebody fills out a contact form on my website, and how quickly you respond to somebody is so critical
Mm-hmm.
because in some cases they're just going down the list on Google and they're calling every lawyer. First one that gets back to them is the one they're going to talk to.
Right.
So I've actually set up this campaign to when the status is new lead, I want to send this text message content. And I've inserted my merge fields, whatever messaging I need. It's already there. So the second something comes in, this automatically goes out for me. I don't even have to think about it.
Mm-hmm. This this reminds me, obviously, of LawRuler, and
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the things that I love about LawRuler is the automations. And one of the big things I love about LawRuler is look at all that red.
I
That
know.
that is it's you think that's a lot of red. No, all of
I
those
know.
things are great.
It's
You know,
worthwhile, Red.
did this person opt in? Are we allowed to send them a text message? Because text
Yeah.
messages, you can get squirrely on those, but they're also phenomenal to be able to use. Look at all those form fields that we're able to put into this. It's not just a thing that
Mm-hmm.
says, "Hi, new user. Hi, new lead." It says, "Hi, lead first name. We'll be reaching out to you shortly." And it really only has to be this, but this is one of those things that this looks really familiar because of LawRuler, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a great thing to bring into CosmoLex.
Yeah, it's so easy to use. I could just select a field that's already in the system.
Hmm.
I can copy it, and then I can go ahead and paste it into this field. And the same thing for email. If I wanted to send email content per this automation, same
Hmm.
thing. Insert those fields. I can choose a specific design template if I want. I can upload an HTML template that I might have from another tool or some other system as well.
Right.
To really, the idea is marketing can be a really, really, really overwhelming task if
Uh-huh.
you're doing it the wrong way. If you're doing it the right way and you're utilizing automations and schedulings and drip campaigns, which you could do here as well,
Yeah.
then it actually does your job for you and leads you to much more solid leads to work with going forward.
Yes, absolutely. And you forget about it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like putting fishing lines out. You
Exactly.
put trot lines out and you let them do the fishing for you, or
Mm-hmm.
and just as kind of a tip to people looking at this going, I'll never get that built. You build it one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You build these things one line at a time, and they get easier, and they're sitting there doing their thing. And this LawRuler slash now CosmoLex area where we do the automations, there's a lot of triggers and a lot of actions that can be done here as well. So there's a good deal of automations that can be created in this system.
Yeah. And they can make it as simple or advanced as they want to.
Hmm.
If they wanted just one simple automation, like the text one I showed, and just that to start, they could do that. But the further they go, it's more like think of all the manual tasks you're doing. Is it possible to automate that? Let's see. That's where you start. And then you can always improve from there. But at least the things that are taking up a lot of time, maybe drafting of certain emails, maybe like how do you know I can say a certain status of lead gets a particular email messaging?
Hmm.
Because maybe I haven't heard from them in 2 weeks, a month, 3 months. We might have different messaging depending on what that situation is.
Hmm.
And that could be set up for them. So I'm really, really excited. I think this gives a huge wealth of functionality to our CosmoLex users that are wondering, well, how do I handle that lead management piece? How do I know what's coming in and how to qualify those and how to eventually work on those the right way? So this is what we have.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is one of those places I usually try to tell people, go draw out your systems before you really get into the tool, but this is a great tool, in my opinion, to look at and say, oh, that's the stuff, that's the type of thing that I can do. Because there is that gap between being able to design your intake system and knowing how to design your intake system.
Mhm.
And I want people to design it a lot of times before they go get the platform. But many times people sit there and say, well, what is it that it can do? Well, CosmoLex actually, like, this is a good one to look at and say, oh, that's the type of automations that I can do.
And to not get too overwhelmed, we do have
Mhm.
an onboarding period. We do have a team that's well versed in templates and automations and e-signature. If you needed to get it into the system, we can assist you with that. I think
Mhm.
sometimes the setup piece can be overwhelming, but we also know that we want to set you up for success, so
Right.
that you can use this properly going forward. So don't be afraid to lean on us.
Well, Eric, I really appreciate you showing me around this. As I said at the beginning, I'm excited about the CRM capabilities coming into CosmoLex. If people want to know more, obviously they can go to CosmoLex.com where they can schedule a demo, get another look under the hood, and get to ask the questions that they want to ask if we if we missed anything here.
Absolutely.
But again, I really appreciate your expertise and you showing me around.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Erica. We'll see you next time.
Yep. See you then.